of the shooting at a Minneapolis Catholic church where students at a back-to-school mass at the Annunciation Catholic School, where at least 2 children have died and 17 more were injured. Now, frankly, it's really too horrible to contemplate here, but we have to talk about it because this story, this tragedy, has sadly become political. Now, this individual, Robin Westman, has been identified as the shooter, but because Robin identified as trans and posted a long, violent manifesto about his transgenderism and regrets and hatred of Donald Trump and Israel and the Jews and the Catholic Church and a billion other things, well, that's created a bit of a problem for the media. This American ABC report was typical.
We've also been going through it and can tell you there are crude diagrams of the church. There are also photos of the weapons, and they include all sorts of writings, the names of past mass shooters, criticism of Israel, the name of President Trump written on the guns. There are also racial slurs.
The name of President Trump. Racial slurs. You can see what they're doing here. They're trying to suggest maybe Westman was some sort of alt-right white supremacist MAGA fan. But what did the ABC leave out? Westman had written the words, "Kill Donald Trump," on his gun. I don't know. I kind of think that's important, you know, for context, right? The New York Times, of course, was just as bad. They wrote, quote, "On social media, some conservative activists have seized on the shooter's gender identity to portray transgender people as violent or mentally ill. The right-wing uproar over Ms. Westman's gender identity echoed the politicized reaction to a 2023 mass shooting at the Covenant School in Nashville, which was carried out by a former student whom the police said was transgender. In a news conference, Mayor Jacob Frey of Minneapolis, a Democrat, urged the public to avoid scapegoating transgender people," unquote. So, you see what they did there? They did the right thing at the start by clearing up confusion about Westman's gender identity, but the paper was so afraid of the conclusions its readers might draw that it surrounded the report with layer after layer of messaging. So, like, you know, if you paid the attention to the gender issue, they're saying, well, don't do that, because if you do that, you're right-wing and a conservative activist. And they also reminded you that Jacob Frey, a Democrat, so pay attention, urged against scapegoating. All this while insisting others politicized the shooting. Well, no, sorry, I'm not going to let that slide. But it wasn't just the media. Local Democrats and officials were also in on the game. Here's the local police chief, Brian O'Hara.
I have no information to share on a motive other than saying, again, that there was some sort of manifesto that was timed to come out on YouTube. It's been taken down, and our investigators are going through that to try and develop a motive from that.
Ah, yes, the old "we may never know the motive" routine. I mean, it looked pretty clear to me, but hey, what do I know? Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar was just as bad.
These kids did extraordinary things, but they never should have been put in that position in the first place. This was a madman. He was an all-purpose hater, by the way. Hated groups left, right, you name it. There's no way to pin an ideology on this.
All-purpose hater, nothing to see here, no politics involved. And Mayor Jacob Frey, as the Times suggested, well, here he is.
I have heard about a whole lot of hate that's being directed at our trans community. Anybody who is using this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community.
By the way, this is a picture of Frey 5 years ago, tearfully kneeling at the golden coffin of George Floyd. Well, I think that tells you something about where he's coming from. Now, look, on one level, Frey is right. Nobody should demonize trans people over this, but frankly, that's not what this is all about. What we are seeing here is a typical, all too typical media cover-up. If this had been a right-wing shooter, we'd have heard no end about the motivations. We'd be hearing about this for weeks and months. But here the story is more difficult and complex for them because it goes against media pieties that have far from treating transgender people as people, just like everybody else, something I reckon most people, whoever they are, want, well, instead the media sanctified them and said, well, you can't talk about things like mental illness because that's not inclusive or whatever. And this story might give them pause as well. The New York Post, which unlike the Times does not try to smother inconvenient facts, has reported that Westman was, quote, tired of being trans, unquote. According to the newspaper, Westman's manifesto included this: I only keep the long hair because it is pretty much my last shred of being trans. I am tired of being trans. I wish I never brainwashed myself, he wrote. Well, there you go. But that's a very inconvenient fact for the media, which never wants to link mental illness and transgenderism or brainwashing at all. And it's not Republicans or people pointing out the facts here who are politicizing this. This has to be said here. No, the politicization of this horrific crime, this horrific tragedy, is coming from those Democrats and media outlets who are twisting the facts here to cover for their own agenda. And that, in my view, is disgraceful.